After more than a year of work, including data collection and analysis, and engaging with partners, stakeholders, and residents, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning finally have a solution for the On to 2050 plan update. The CMAP Board and MPO Policy Committee approved the plan update on October the 12th, 2022. The CMAP began to develop the On to 2050 Comprehensive Plan in 2015, and after a highly transparent 3-year process featuring extensive research, analysis, and public engagement, everything was done. The resulting plan was adopted on October 10, 2018, and builds on the agency's first comprehensive regional plan, Go-To 2040, which was released in 2010 and updated in 2014. Adoption of the plan guides transportation investments and frames regional priorities on development, the environment, the economy, and other issues affecting quality of life. Residents of metropolitan Chicago live and work in the city because of many opportunities for prosperity that the region offers. The city homes diverse industries, a well-educated workforce, and world-class institutions of higher education. The region remains a nexus for rail, air, water, and automotive transportation in North America. In the past decade, great strides have been made on investments in its transits and road networks, preserving high-quality open space and fostering livable communities. At the same time, people are struggling to keep up with economically, making do with less revenue to maintain aging infrastructure and facing growing inequality. The Chicago region has a tradition of seizing its destiny rather than leaving the future to chance. To thrive, people must address the challenges collaboratively and ensure metropolitan Chicago's status as a global center of commerce, a place where opportunity is open to all. The progress has stalled for reasons that are complex but by no means irreversible. By systematically investing in the residents, infrastructure, and communities, the region can make tangible progress toward broad, lasting prosperity and quality of life. In developing the On to 2050 Comprehensive Regional Plan, CMAP has spent approximately 3 years working with partners to conduct extensive research, issue more than 24 reports, and engaging over 100,000 residents of the 7-county region. The plan affirms and builds on the recommendations of its predecessor, Go-To 2040, to offer specific direction where needed and identify additional priorities. Regions that offer economic opportunity for residents regardless of race, income, or background enjoy longer, stronger periods of prosperity and fewer, shorter periods of economic stagnation. Metropolitan Chicago is simply not thriving when so many people and places are left behind. Despite the many enviable assets, the government falls short of ensuring economic opportunity for all residents. Though also true of many other regions, this unfortunate reality is particularly evident in Chicago according to numerous measures based on race or ethnicity. For a stronger, more equitable future, the region needs to ensure every resident and community has the ability to fully contribute to and benefit from the economy. By taking deliberate steps region-wide, together we can make progress toward inclusive growth across all 7 counties and 284 municipalities to ensure a more robust economy. Inequity persists when the location of someone's home, their race or ethnicity, or socioeconomic status determine their economic success, health, and overall quality of life. This inequality manifests strongly along racial lines and often can be traced to racially discriminatory policies and practices such as redlining, exclusionary zoning, school segregation, and predatory lending. Residents also experience health disparities depending on where they live and work. Promoting inclusive growth can disrupt these patterns and help the region be stronger and more successful economically. To compete in the global economy, the city of Chicago must tap the full potential of all our workers, businesses, and infrastructure. Currently, a substantial portion of the region's human capital, embodied in the talents and skills of excluded residents, is being wasted. Paired with other strategies to capitalize on the region's economic assets, emphasizing inclusive economic initiatives can help restart long-term growth in disinvested places and increase prosperity across the region. Strategies for inclusive growth can also help the region attract and retain a diverse populace. Having recently lost population, particularly along low and moderate income residents as well as Black residents, the city must take intentional, proactive steps to open doors in communities where opportunity hasn't knocked for generations, as well as pursue economic growth that benefits residents at all skill and income levels. Regionally, inequity also takes a toll on communities themselves, many of which have not recovered from the recession. Despite making prudent budget choices, too many municipalities find their tax base limited by long-term disinvestment of people and jobs and resulting high vacancies. Combined with decreasing federal and state support, this lack of capacity can make it difficult for municipalities to provide essential services. Inclusive growth can help such communities stem these trends and control their own destiny. Long-term regional prosperity requires economic opportunity for all residents and communities. To remain strong, metropolitan Chicago requires communities, infrastructure, and systems that can thrive in the face of future economic, fiscal, and environmental uncertainties. By achieving resilience, the communities can prepare for and recover from acute shocks and chronic stresses. This requires making infrastructure, natural systems, and social structures more durable. In addition to rebounding quickly from, for instance, stronger storms and frequent flooding, a resilient region can actually capitalize on these challenges. If extreme heat causes pavement to buckle, it can be replaced not only by a road more resistant to extreme temperatures, but also one built to mitigate flooding and ensure reliable, weather-resistant transportation. But resilient refers to much more than climate change. Many communities lack the capacity, for example, revenue, staff, expertise, equipment, and other resources, to effectively implement local and regional goals related to services, land use, and quality of life. By pooling resources, deploying new technologies, and training staff, resilient municipalities can plan collaboratively to provide essential services even as federal and state support continues to diminish. While funding from the state of Illinois will continue to play a crucial role, though quite an uncertain one due to fiscal conditions, local revenue streams must be more resilient to economic forces beyond the region's control. Working closely together to achieve resilience, the region's communities can also prepare for inevitable challenges as global markets spur a transition to new types of work in emerging industries and change commercial, industrial, and even residential development patterns. The region and its communities must anticipate and adapt to future challenges, both known and unknown, driven by climate, commerce, technology, and other factors. In any era, metropolitan Chicago requires wise stewardship of public revenues to maximize regional benefits. Especially when federal and state funding becomes less sufficient year by year, the city must ensure prioritized investment for infrastructure, development, and the economy to maximize regional benefits. Prioritized investment extends beyond transportation infrastructure to the built environment, technical assistance, and other public resources. For decades, funding of public services and infrastructure at all levels of governments have been stagnant or diminishing, yet costs continue to rise. Due to the need of new support for transportation in particular, On to 2050 identifies a number of alternatives to the state's and region's antiquated sources of revenue. Chicago requires funding methods sustainable and flexible enough for operating and maintaining a modern system of roads, transit, and freight, whose needs could continually shift due to emerging technologies and economic realities. Coordinating investment by linking transportation with housing or targeting public expenditures to attract private resources, among other examples, is also essential for effectively using limited resources. To maximize the benefit of precious transit resource, for instance, requires land use decisions that support residential and commercial development so people can live and work near bus or train services. Making the best use of existing roadways through strategies like improved responses to weather and events, or managing demand through congestion pricing, can limit expansion needs. Similarly, storm water management investments can meet multiple goals by also offering recreational options and improving water quality. Above all, prioritized investment requires close coordination across implementing agencies responsible for providing technical assistance or selecting projects transparently based on clear, measurable objectives. Local governments can take a similar approach to development through targeted reinvestment in existing places, paired with fiscally and environmentally sustainable expansion. To improve the existing system, the city must address the backlog of transportation, water, and other infrastructure in need of repair or replacement, opting for expansion projects only when they meet clear regional objectives. Metropolitan Chicago's residents, businesses, and institutions continue to create ideas, art, and commercial products that reach around the world. Over the last decade, our region has experienced significant economic, demographic, technical, environmental, and fiscal changes, and the future promises even more substantive shifts. People must also rebuild and modernize aging infrastructure at a time when travel patterns are changing, with potentially profound effects. Uncertainties about the state's fiscal condition and federal priorities mean that the city must fund its own needs. Today, Chicago population growth has stagnated and the economic growth lags behind peer regions. Despite recent population losses, CMAP forecasts that the region will add 2.3 million new residents and 920,000 new jobs by 2050. On to 2050 lays out a vision to help the region get back on track and thrive again. Nevertheless, the region is endowed with tremendous assets. Businesses here from industries as diverse as finance, health, and manufacturing have access to a diverse, well-educated, and globally connected workforce. The region's unemployment rate continues to improve, and the businesses produce more goods and services year after year. Economic outcomes in our region frequently reflect racial lines of demarcation. Residents of color, particularly Black residents, often experience lower incomes and higher unemployment. Some communities become caught in a cycle of disinvestment, unable to promote economic development, invest in infrastructure, and otherwise serve their residents. A growing body of research supports the idea that racial and economic inclusion bolster regional economic strength. International research suggests that reducing inequality by even 10% can increase the extent and durability of periods of growth by 50%. Making investments in inclusive growth will help the whole region succeed. Insufficient funding presents a central challenge to achieving an enviable quality of life and economic vitality for all. Due to shrinking federal and state revenues, local governments struggle to implement their priorities. While many have made do with less by pooling resources with other governments, cutting staff, or leveraging technology to be more efficient, many governments have also begun to cut core services. Without new revenues for infrastructure and increased collaboration among governments, progress on regional priorities will be impeded. In the absence of adequate, timely investments in the infrastructure, transportation and water systems are decaying. The standard lifespan of expressways is 50 years, but many of our facilities were built in the 50s and 60s. Significant capital funding shortages in the transit system limit the region's ability to provide accessible, high-quality service. Water infrastructure was also developed decades ago, with replacement needed to reduce water loss or replace lead pipes. Stormwater infrastructure is not always sufficient for today's rain levels and will particularly struggle in the face of storms with increased intensity. Asset management and other performance-based investment approaches can help, but cannot succeed unless paired with new revenues. At current funding levels, the condition of these systems is declining, and the cost to repair them increasing every day. The climate is changing at a global scale with significant implications for the built environment, economy, ecosystems, and people of this region. Lake Michigan and high-quality natural areas to help reduce the progress of climate change. These assets may help the region thrive as other parts of the nation struggle. To ensure continued success will necessitate re-envisioning how road, water, and energy infrastructure is built and maintained, preserving and protecting natural and agricultural areas, implementing stormwater-based management practices, and creating social networks and resources to give residents tools to withstand climate impacts. New information technology and data processing capacity are having far-reaching effects. Road and transit agencies can better track current conditions, reroute drivers or transit service, and manage their networks. Businesses can enhance process and supply chains to gain a competitive edge. Residents have growing options to get around without owning a car, to work from anywhere, and purchase goods. These technologies will also change the nature of work, demanding new skills and different training for today and tomorrow's workers. People are living longer lives in general. To provide a strong quality of life for our growing senior population, the region will need to continue adapting transit services, capitalize on emerging transportation and communication technology, and create more places with amenities and services in easy reach. Chicago's population is also diversifying. If current trends continue, the region's population will be comprised of a majority of persons of color within the next decade. Diversity is an economic strength that a region can capitalize on, while taking steps to ensure access to economic opportunity for all residents. The region will always be successful by providing many types of places to live, from dense urban nodes to suburban residential neighborhoods to rural towns. The region must also accommodate increased demand for places where a car is optional and residents can walk to shopping, entertainment, and services. While development since 2000 has not concentrated on areas with strong transit availability, buildings under construction today throughout the region are increasingly located in areas with access to transit or with substantial existing development and infrastructure. Communities are beginning to recognize the need to ensure that new development is fiscally and economically sustainable, as recent patterns of land development have worsened public funding constraints. While the region's population grew 4.6% from 2000 to 2015 and total jobs remained essentially flat, our development area expanded by nearly 12%, an area equal to the city of Chicago. The region has also preserved 61,500 acres of open space from 2001 to 15. However, progress on effectively addressing the combination of economic development, conservation, and fiscal sustainability has been mixed. Conditions in the region change each year, which is why CMAP is required to update parts of the long-range 30-year plan every 4 years. This progress reaffirmed on the On-to 2050 vision, updated data projects, reviewed accomplishments, and reassessed transportation needs.